Artificial intelligence policy clash. The United Nations and China want a global regulation, but the US, unfortunately, and not very surprisingly, wants to deregulate in its own country and also does not pursue a global regulation. This is very bad news. We're not against regulating or deregulating a specific sector, including AI, but to tackle this huge issue that could pose AI to society and the environment, we need a global regulation. Same as there's an IMF or an IPCC for climate change, we have international rules for certain international laws and so on. We need the same for AI, especially because it's such a rapidly developing technology and the potential negative impact to society and the environment are catastrophic, which does not mean that it doesn't have many opportunities that we might have never imagined of. Of course it does. And we need to take care and take advantage of them. But it is critical. Without a global regulation, this will be impossible. And it's not me, I know, but he's saying this. It's rather the head of the agency, the communications agency of the UN, which is clearly stating that we need a global regulation, not only for the users of AI, but also for those that do not have even access to internet, which we're talking about 2.6 billion people, which of course, if they don't have access to internet, they won't be able to use AI. And we need to make the rules for those as well. But unfortunately, we have the US, which is pursuing a very different pathway, a pathway that maybe only them, they like it, but in the long run, I'm very sure that it will be a huge disadvantage, as this poses a global arms AI race, and without a global regulation, that will be impossible. Even China, that is the second or potentially the first tie with the US when it comes to developing AI, they want to pursue a global regulation as well. And this has been stated very, very recently, which we embrace that potential diplomacy that we don't know many details about it, but at least they want to pursue a global regulation because otherwise the risks outweigh the potential opportunities. This pathway that China offers might based that HQ might be based in China, and that's pretty much what we know about it. The UN poses a different pathway but very similar, a pathway of a global regulation, most likely not based in China, but the US clearly is pursuing an extremely different pathway, and that ends up being a catastrophe if the negative threats of AI end up becoming a reality that not so long ago might have been impossible, but this only looks a few years away. We need a global regulation. We're not against regulating or deregulating AI or any other industry, but again, for this concrete problem that only humanity together, united, will be able to solve, we need a global regulation as soon as possible, because otherwise, this might be the end of humanity in a couple of decades or even years ahead. It's not that it's the only pathway. We're not saying and stating that humanity might be on the verge of a catastrophe. It's a pathway. Does not necessarily mean it's the only one. But it might be the only one if we cannot collectively, at very least, set some rules, some regulations in that regard. We're not talking about having a concrete and very complex multidimensional regulation. We're stating the basic rules that states should be able to follow, because otherwise nobody's going to trust each other, especially China and the US. Also, the EU has a different proposal, and fractional proposals are not enough. We need a global one as soon as possible. And we're optimistic about it. No rush, EU, no rush, China, no rush, China. Again, I said China again, it's fine. No rush, the States, the United States, because I mean, what could happen? No worries, we got this. We're very optimistic about it, even though, sometimes I get anxiety for it. So it's fine. So, having said that, you can check the sources in the description box below, including the article of China, which doesn't describe much about it, but the US plan and the United Nations one is pretty much extensive, at least much more than the potential Chinese one. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and as always, embrace your curiosity, enjoy life, and if possible, be the change you want to see in the world. See you in the next optimistic and adventure.